session now.
Yep. Yeah. This is Saturday morning therapy.
Yeah. All right, Mr.
Yes,
Bernstein.
yes, indeed. Welcome to Tinderbox Meetup and Saturday Morning Therapy with Michael Becker. I'm Mark Bernstein, the designer of Tinderbox. I actually do have something to show very quickly here. If I can share my screen and get the correct, there we go. For the last few weeks, I've been coming to Tinderbox meetups with a new backstage build released Friday. Uh, this week I wasn't going to, but then Roger Alexander, I think in the main forum, possibly the backstage forum, pointed out that the white space handling in the displayed attributes table was really bad. And so here you will notice that I have a displayed attributes table, and instead of being way over here, the values are over here. There's still a fairly liberal amount of white space because we've got to have a space for the widgets like the globe for URLs, the file folder for files, and so forth, the color swatch for colors. But we do actually have a more compact table. Experimentally, we've got a little bit of color on the first column to make it stand out just a little bit more. Uh, you wouldn't want to know how hard that was, but but it's there.
Mhm.
This came directly from a forum discussion, and it's a good idea, I think. It may not be finally in this condition, but this is the way we move forward.
Yeah, it
So
looks very
great
good.
thanks. And here's
Nice.
Michael.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Tinderbox meetup. Typically, what we do is we go around the room and new people introduce themselves. We will then jump into like notifications, like Mark just gave us, any projects we're working on or talking about, and then we'll pop into a theme. We don't have a theme or a scheduled guest speaker today. I do have one that I'd like to propose. I gave a keynote address at an AI and luxury summit on Thursday, and I had not even begun to write the deck until Tuesday afternoon. And I've probably been the sickest I've been in 5 years this week. So come Tuesday afternoon, being the sickest I've been in about 5 years, I had to leverage all of my tools and all of my processes to be able to get it done. So if you guys are interested, I'd be happy to show you a workflow methodology I use that combines AI, Tinderbox, Pandoc, PowerPoint, and the whole process of going about building a keynote
Cool.
worthy presentation in a day and a half
Mhm.
while being sick with a
What was
fever
the
and a cold.
audience? What was the
Um,
audience?
I like the CEO of Rolls Royce, major marketers and product leaders from luxury brands.
Oh boy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the audience. Yeah, so it was very good. So I can definitely show you that process. And I was thinking about what we might want to do experimentally is we can grab David Rogers' Hitchhiker's Guide file, copy a bunch of that text into a chat environment, and say, hey chat, can you help us scope out a presentation for this material? And then we can take that and then bring that into Tinderbox and then bring that into slides into a PowerPoint. We could probably get that solved within a quick hour or so. So I think that would be a fun workflow exercise for today, if you guys are interested in that. But I haven't seen Tillman Altenberg for ages, if ever. Love to hear what you're here for and what you want to talk about today.
No, I'm back after
Yeah,
a
yeah, it's been a
break of, I
while.
don't know, like a year or so. I was abroad for some time and then I had some work stuff. So I'm back in the loop, hopefully. And I've no particular specific interest other than just keeping up with developments and being wowed by you guys' expertise. That's it, basically.
Michael, we
Yes.
do have Jacob Evans, who's going to talk about events and event handling. So
Awesome.
I think we
So
can
let's
have
start with
two
that.
topics.
Yeah, let's start with. Yeah, I was just going to fill one in.
Uh,
If we have an official one, that'd be
actually,
great.
if we could, I'm sorry, Mark, maybe I missed it, but I don't think I got confirmation that I was on for today. Maybe we could start with Michael's thing and I can get my stuff set up and all that.
Got it.
That'd be
Got it.
okay.
Got it. All right.
But cool. Yeah, I'm
Anybody,
happy to share. Love to do
Chuck?
demos.
anybody else have any other things?
Yeah, I was just going to say that if not for this time, if we're looking for a little short segment, I've been fooling around with importing data and exploding it. And I think the problems are pretty common for, I think people will probably run into them. Not the way I'm dealing with them, but so
Well, let's start with that, Chuck. Go for it.
I thought that might be a little interesting example to play around with at some point, just to talk about some very simple techniques that take you from the world of spreadsheets into the world of Tinderbox.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it. Go for it.
I'm just waiting for my Tinderbox program to complete. Why don't you?
Mine can be a bit long, so
right.
I'd rather have mine at the end simply because it can
All
take as little as or as much time as it's allotted.
And we can always walk out if you run too long.
Yeah, exactly. It was no, but my topic is one of those topics that will take as much time as is available.
Right. So I'm going to. I don't know whether anybody's noticed, but Zoom has been fooling around with where share screen takes place again and has affected things. So let me take a quick stab at trying to share this content. Move this up to here. Going to go here. All right, I'm not quite sure what it's done. Are people seeing my screen at the moment?
We are.
A little on the dense side.
Okay. Like I say, Zoom is being Zoom. Okay.
So can you start? Can you start with like what's the data set? Where is it coming from? What's the problem?
Exactly where I'm going to go.
Good.
So let me talk about what my problem is and why I think other people are likely to run into similar things.
You only have one? Good for you.
My immediate problem, what I've been working on the last couple of days. All right. So the world is full of data, and I'm fooling around with the space of Internet of Things, and particularly in a home energy management context. But as I look out, there are just so many places where you can grab massive data sets, and typical file formats are comma separated or tab separated records that you can pull down and dump into your spreadsheet tool like Excel, and things will work. The challenge with some of this stuff is that if you use a spreadsheet, there are a lot of things you can do with a comma separator or tab separated file, but there are also just all kinds of ways that things can get bollocksed up or that things won't work right. Some of these are classic problems with Excel, like it just really does not handle importing of CSV as well as it should. Other problems are just that it can become a real performance hog trying to process a large data set. And there are also issues of how do you do conversions? So I'm going to talk about one example of a data set that I pulled down. This is from an Autel EV charger. And if I look at one of these data sets, this is just, all I do is just paste the...
I think I can't see that. I think we're just seeing Tinderbox. I don't see the data set if I'm missing something.
Oh, okay. You're not seeing my cursor moving around?
No. There, I see a cursor moving around now. Okay, so is that in a Tinderbox window?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see
There
if
you
I
go.
can.
It's on another
All
screen. There you
right,
go.
yeah. All right, hold
Enter
on.
stage top. By the way, while we're holding on, if anyone wants to go see the Stranger Things Broadway play, it was amazing. I highly recommend it.
Okay, so you're seeing import EV1 2025-09, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so here's what the data looks like. Just a very simple explanation. This is an EV charger, and it's kind of oriented toward people who want to charge back for the use of their EV charger. So an apartment complex or an employee parking lot, things like that. And so what it does is it produces records that look like this here, that have a start time for when the charging started and an end time for when the charging ended, and it gives you a duration, um, all spelled out in, with what's the hour, what's the minute, what's the second, and it gives you the cumulative kilowatt hours. So if I look at this record, it's a little more interesting because it actually got something in it. So 12.67 kilowatt hours, and it estimated the cost of that at a current electric rate of being $4.01. And it gives me information on which home charger it is and stuff like that, what schedule was invoked. So this is the data that you get. And if you try and import this into a spreadsheet, what do you do with this? Well, your best bet is to hope that you can extract the start time and the end time. And then you're probably better off doing your own computation of what the interval time is. But here's the interesting problem. In most cases, this is not the way you want to see your data. You don't want to see data as a span of time. You want the technical term might be you want to bend the data. You want to put it into time slots because almost everything else is going to break your time up into increments of, let's say, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, things of that nature, and show you, for example, energy use. How many kilowatt hours were used in this hour? How many kilowatt hours are used in the next hour? So a duration like this is an example of a problem, because you're going to have to reprocess this data in a way to get it to match up with another set of data that might be based on bending of an hour or quarter hour intervals. Um, and I'm not just thinking about it. That's the kind of problem Excel is really not well suited to dealing with. And it's the kind of processing you don't want to do continuously. So that's the other issue with an Excel spreadsheet. It's just going to sit there and it's just going to continue running whatever conversions or things like that. And every time you make a change in the spreadsheet, it's going to run around and do all this significant amount of work. Whereas these import processes and conversions are really one-time events. So let me show an example of, I'm going to close this up, go down here to this explode stamp. This is a stamp that will take one of those files that I just showed you and basically extract it and put those records into something that looks like this, which then allows me to go over and look at the results of what I just showed you, but now converted into a series of records that are then displayed in the excellent table format that Mark gave us, so that it looks very much like a spreadsheet. So I've done what one would do with a spreadsheet, but now I have the ability to start going through, and the interval durations here are actually Tinderbox's calculations of intervals. And so I could now start doing processes to convert this set of data into a totally different set of data that will be bend appropriately. Bend as in BIN, putting into slots or bends that are of fixed duration. And so the import process, if I go back to here, or the explode as I call it, It's not the explode we'd normally use because it wouldn't really work all that well. And I wanted to do some intermediate processing as I was going through this. So it's a simple stamp. It's pulling in each new paragraph. So we have a loop that's going to go through every line in the text field, which is an entire file of all these records, several hundred records. And it's going to capture the string. It's going to do that associated with that particular file. So my string is actually going to be in the note that has this large text block. I'm then doing this may look awful, but this is actually fairly simple regex, which is just going through and pulling out the date and time for those two fields and extracting that, and then going in here and then filling in, creating a new note. So we actually have a charge event create that creates a new note for each record, each line in that file, and fills in the associated attributes. So event index is created, a start time, an end time, the kilowatt hours, the cost that I pull in from this. Duration is now calculated and just keeps going through this loop until it has processed all the data. And I can incrementally take many months worth of data and boil it down into a charge history, which looks, it's just a bunch of records here. Each record is just attributes. So there's no text fields or anything like that. It's just, I'm capturing the data. But now then, when I go over and I look at the charge history as in an outline format, I see my name here of the note. And by the way, a little comment, we were talking about names. Here's a classic example of where we automatically create names only for the purpose of being able to reference these things, just as a handle. So the names just merely tell me in sequence, how did we capture these records? And they're only important in terms of being able to give a means of accessing this data. So now I've got information in a format that I can begin to do subsequent processing on. And let me stop here. Is that an obvious procedure? Do other people encounter things like this where they might be interested in doing stuff like this? Or
Yeah, I've done stuff like that a lot. I mean, one thing I'd be interested in having you show us is, can you pull up the crosstab view and maybe play with showing some bins, because that's a great example of using the crosstab view.
well, I don't. Again, this particular data set, the charge records,
Right.
are not really binned. What I was going to do is I was
Right,
going
but
to move on.
but I was going to use let's use the crosstab view to try to bin them.
Okay, well, let me move to what I was going to do next, was just talk about a different data set that just illustrates what binning looks like. And now then, I'm going to see if I can bring. I've only got one application in here. Do people see the spreadsheet I just dragged in?
Yeah.
You do?
Yes.
Okay, good. So in this case, I'm showing a CSV file that in this particular example, Excel did not have a problem with importing the data. So here we have a set of records, and this gets into about, well, almost 9,000 records from 1 month. This comes from an ecobee thermostat, which will happily give me a record for every 5-minute interval, showing me the settings of my thermostat for, what am I setting the temperature I want? So 69 degrees for heat, 74 degrees for cooling, what the current temperature is, the current humidity, the outdoor temperature, the wind speed, the cool stage 1, because I've got two systems in my house, two geothermal heat pumps. each both having two stages of compressing. So I've got, when is it calling for stage one? When is it calling for stage two for cooling? When is it calling for stage one heating, stage two heating? And then because heating, everybody gets nervous about it, we have an auxiliary resistive heating element, which we don't use, which the thermostat can also control fan, and it just keeps going on and on. And then there are multiple sensors providing data. So a ton of data, nearly 9,000 records for every single month. Bend, if you look at the time intervals, I hope you can see them. I'm looking at 9:30, then 9:35, then 9:40, 9:45, 9:50, 9:55, et cetera, going through all of this. And what I'm now in the process of doing is pulling in that data into a similar type of Excel data set. And literally, I was just in the process of doing this. I'm going to show you the import stamp first. Let me go back here. This is the same data I was showing you in Excel. These are just a few sample records pulled out, showing what this looks like as CSV. And if I give me a second. All right, so now I have an import explode for the thermostat data. Because there's more data, I've got a little bit more complex process. But I wanted to show one of the things that you can run into in an example of how to deal with it. So if you look at this data set here, you will see that there are some instances of, for example, between the heat stage, the compressors being called heat stage 1 on, I see two commas right next to each other, then another text field. And over here, I can see two other commas right next to each other. So those are null entries. And this is very common in CSV or tab delimited files. You run into this all the time. And what I had originally intended to do was just use the Tinderbox split function. And I know there are other ways to do this, but I'm just going to talk through what I did. I wanted to use the Tinderbox split function to extract this into a list, to take all these fields and put them into a list. And then what I wanted to do in the import process, if you see here, I've got thermostat humidity. If I look at this record right here, thermostat humidity, and I want to pull that from a particular field out of that list. So up above here on this line here, I take the string, which was extracted from the paragraph line out of the text field, and I split it looking for commas. This is a straightforward operation. And what I get back is I get a list, which will look very much like this list that you see right here. And I know this is way too small for you to actually read it, but basically there's now semicolons replacing the commas. And including where there was an empty field, I get two semicolons right after each other. I thought that's obvious. Well, that'll be a null entry. However, what I discovered was, because I wanted to use regular indexing, I wanted to just pull out the cool set point, which should always be the sixth element in the record. That was fine, unless there was a null entry before that, at which point it was the fifth element. If there were two null entries before that, it would be two less. So in other words, null entries were not being counted when we do the numeric indexing into a list. So there are other ways I could have solved this, and it might be interesting to explore that. But just to show a quick way that you can look at things like this, I took the string, I bring the string in first from the paragraph line. I trim it just to get rid of anything that might be on the end, because there were a couple of line feeds, probably to deal with Windows. And then I do this additional operation. I'm using the replace operator, and I'm taking an interesting regex expression, which I had to fool around with. I had not used back references previously, so I had to go digging around. But here's a little way to basically say, I want to find everything which is a null entry, and I want to replace it with, in this case, I put an asterisk. Now then, I've got a text string, comma separated, but with no empty fields. So when I now do my list is split and get a list, I now have something where the numeric indexes will be consistent throughout. So it's just, I'm merely not so much trying to show the mechanisms here and emphasize that, but instead I'm just postulating that with a little bit of thought, Tinderbox can be a tremendous tool for extracting data, putting it into a format where all the data elements are now variables, attributes, which you can then do all kinds of processing on in subsequent efforts. And I think it's this ability of Tinderbox to explode data in as an elaborate a manner as you want and give you something which is now easy to work with and that you can process programmatically as opposed to trying to play games with Excel spreadsheets. To be a very powerful capability. And I think that's where I wanted to end it.
Chuck, there's something else here, though, that I think is critical to think about is one of the challenges I have with Excel, or what I'll call, output software or the end game software, is it's actually a very destructive environment, right? It's hard to edit and work in Excel without destroying your raw data. Whereas the process that you were talking about here really lends itself, because your raw data is sitting there on a text file on your computer, and you bring it into Tinderbox to manipulate it with. And invariably, you will screw it up the first 4 or 5 times you do the data, and you can always go back and bring in the raw data. So it's a really just nice part of the workflow or method to ensure that you're never really impacting the source data. And Mr. Anderson? And you agree with that, Chuck? It seems.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I was going to say, to figure out all these little problems, to debug this, I was manipulating the data all over the place. In fact, I had this little small data set here, and I just kept running it. And every time I ran it and it didn't work right, I just threw the stuff away. Yeah. Furthermore, where I brought this data into my Tinderbox file, I showed you with the charging records, I brought in every month, just as a separate note with a large text block, which was the data. For this thermostat data, I'm much more likely to bring in 1 month at a time, process it, and then I don't need that in my Tinderbox file anymore. But all I did was just bring in text. The original text is still intact. It's still part of my files of record, so I can always go back to it. But now I've got the data in a much more manageable state. And again, I think this is a powerful capability. Now then, when I start doing the processing, I can start doing all kinds of operations to manipulate data, put it in a format. And really where I'm going, the reason this is such an issue is I want to be able to look at past data, which was not always collected in the most efficient or rational way, clean it up, and begin to look at energy usage by appliance, by device. And because each of these appliances and devices have their own ways of providing the data, if you can get it at all, you need to be able to get it into a format where you can now start using common attributes so that a kilowatt hour is always a kilowatt hour, and begin to start pulling this together and then lining the data up, getting it into a format where you can say, I've got an hour and here's data pulled from multiple sources, all aligned, all coordinated, and made rational for that hour. And then we can start drawing graphs and doing further analysis and eventually generating reports on, so what is the transition from, quote, natural gas or methane burning to geothermal really look like? What are the pros and cons? What is the end result look like from an energy usage perspective? That's where I'm trying to
Very
go.
cool.
So
Very
that's
cool.
just
Now, let's let Mr. Anderson comment, and then before you show off your screen, I want to go back to see if we can, if you wouldn't mind, try doing a crosstab on that original data you were showing.
okay.
Okay, so
But Mr. Anderson,
I'm going to ask the dumb question out loud. So I was just wondering why you needed to use the regex to get there, to pick those double columns, because what happens if you just replace every pair of sequential commas with comma, asterisk, comma?
It doesn't work.
Okay, fair enough. So edge case.
I tried that. That was the first thing. I was,
Right. Okay,
no,
fine.
no problem here. The problem is when you have two empty fields immediately adjacent to each other. And it will get the first one, but not the second one. We say, well, just run the replace again. And that'll get the second one. But I have records where the connection to the cloud service was broken for a period of time. So I've got a whole series of records that are mostly empty. I still have the date stamp and so forth. And so, I'd have to apply that operation many, many times to get all the fields cleaned up, which is why I needed to use a different approach. And it's fascinating that the replace operation, which maps to a traditional command line replace operation, has been around for eons. It gives you the ability to take a regex and a fairly obscure regex that will, you can do easy web searching and find lots of people who have the same problem who will give you examples, and put it into the search portion of the replace. And then the what do you replace it with is straightforward. It's just whatever you want to stick into that field. And
yeah, sure.
worked magically.
I figured I'd just pull that out because I know you've been around the block long enough that you wouldn't have dashed immediately to that complex of regex if there wasn't a reason, but I thought it might be useful to hook out. So thanks.
Yeah, and I really, I should have thought, and I'm going to pay some more attention to stream processing as an alternative approach. That's something I thought would be more useful for some of the other things I'm doing. But there are many techniques. Tinderbox is a wonderful collection of tools that allow you to find a way to deal with the mess you have to live with and put it into some kind of rational form. And we don't often talk about that aspect of Tinderbox, and I thought it was worth bringing up.
One warning though, this terrible behavior of mistreating empty fields, I didn't know about. And I would appreciate listeners who embrace this technique to find a way where if Tinderbox in the future should start handling empty fields correctly, that will not greatly inconvenience you. For example, put in a flag that says, in your software now, that says fix it. So you can say fix it equals false when Tinderbox behaves better.
Yeah. If I.
and in other words, you're signaling that you're going to work on helping Tinderbox behave better. So then that way there's some graceful refactoring that can be done. That's what I hear you saying, Mark, right?
Also, earlier this week, I was updating Story Space to work with Tinderbox 11 operators. And in the process, I had, of course, lots of failing tests, which we expunged one after the other. And one of those was the test for the behavior known as Dina's default bug, which was a bug which, in Garfield interpretation, back in the early 90s, that we fixed. But Dina Larson had a very large and ambitious hypertext that depended hundreds and hundreds of times on this buggy behavior. And so for like 30 years, we've had tests and code to let you set a preference to be Dina Larson.
Interesting.
It would be better not to have too many of those.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, to your point, if you look at my code here, you'll see that I have 2 lines that would normally be 1. So
Right.
there's the extraction of the paragraph line, and here's the fix to deal with empty fields. I did it that way because I anticipated that you, being the infamous eat skate, would fix it at some point. And so I have one place, I remove that line, issue resolved. Furthermore, it doesn't really do anything because it's not going to find empty. Well, actually, I wouldn't need it in the future. It wouldn't be problematic, but I wouldn't need it. I'll also point out something else that you people know that I love logging. In this case here, there's always the simple form of logging. Since this is a stamp and it's always running against a note which has a whole block of text in it, I use that note, or actually I'm exploding this into a container that will have all the resulting records. I use that container as a place to put logging information. So you'll see that I've got some commented out text fields here. And this is just a very useful technique when you're working with stamps. If you're trying to explode operations, take advantage of a note that already exists and its text field, which you're not otherwise using, a container, for example, and put in rights, basically add text, which you just keep inserting information into, a plus equals operation, is a very handy debugging technique that I would encourage people to think about when they're doing stamps. I will probably share some of this at some point just to give people an example if people find that interesting. But I'm done. I just wanted to.
No, can you go back to your other file and let's try looking at the crosstab? I always like playing with new views.
Okay.
Once data actually exists.
All right. So here I am in the.
Yeah. So let's view that as a
view.
crosstab. Just right mouse click on the tab.
Okay. Did that do anything?
No, I think you did it on the other tab. Yeah, click there. There you go.
Oh yeah.
There you go. So now, yeah. So you see, like it's already automatically started to bin. So the ones between 1.88 and 2459, you're getting counts.
Mm.
And is that number like, what is that? Is that like a time, minutes or?
I think it's counts. I'm
count.
not. I haven't turned crosstab on for this data.
No, well, there's no need to turn it on per se. What you do is then we can see like what. No, yeah. So go to rows and columns. So let's put in rows. You've got name, and in columns, it's height. I'm sorry, it's height. So where it says columns in the middle, change that to another attribute like the charging time.
Okay.
Is that how you do that, Mr. Anderson? Yeah. There you go. Select from that.
Yeah.
And find the charging time.
It is not finding
Duration.
that. Not finding the.
Use the search field.
Go. Yeah. Click out of there. Click out of there.
Dismiss the menu. Do it
click
again.
On height. And now type
use the
there
search
in the search field.
Okay.
What'd you call it? Duration?
Duration hours. Okay. All right, so I've got duration hours for columns.
Name for row.
Buddy?
Yeah.
Actually, wait a minute here. This isn't.
That's not the name.
That's not that's not the data. I'm doing crosstab on the other data. So let me.
Oh yeah.
That's the problem. I was getting confused as what I was seeing here, and now I see what
So right mouse click on cross. Go to outline view.
Yep, I know.
And then open that That. Oh yeah, that's what you're doing. Okay, yeah, there you
Right.
go.
This is what I want to look at. Is
Yeah.
this?
Now right mouse click on that and say
Mhm.
open a new tab.
Yep, that I know.
Well, for the people that are listening,
Yep,
that
yep.
yeah.
And
But that's not the one that had the different EV charge names, the
that's
normalized
right.
names.
Okay, so if we want to go back to that, let me. I close that.
Go back with the breadcrumb. Click on the
Yep,
breadcrumb. That brings you back. There
yep,
you go.
yep. Okay. This is what I want to look at.
Yeah, that one.
And I want to open a new tab. And I want to go to Crosstabs.
Yeah.
There we go.
And then stick duration in where it says height.
But this is still the wrong data. Oh, I'm on. No.
You need to set the container.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the whole document there.
Yeah. But I think that we actually should sit down, think about crosstabs, perhaps give crosstabs a little bit of care and attention, and do a entire episode on crosstabs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Agreed.
It's one of the things I'm going to start playing around with to see how useful that would be.
It's really powerful for stuff like this, but
Right.
it has too many controls at the top, and they aren't always the right controls. And
right. So I was going to, one of the things I was intending to do is to start playing around with some of those types of tools. I mean, the Tinderbox equivalent of a pivot table.
Right.
And see if I could make use of those effectively. However, I know that long term, I want to totally transform the data. And that's going to involve, just literally walking through the data and building new records that are in a common format that I can then compare. So the crosstabs will be probably a useful analytical tool when trying to figure out what I want to do. But the long-term objective is to really transform series of data elements into new series of data elements that are in a consistent format with consistent binning. Which again, I think is not an uncommon problem. And in many areas, you would probably run into similar objectives. So that's why I thought I would share it. And
No, and
I think
what's interesting though is what's that one mark, the 117? Is that saying there is
that's a rough distribution of what values are in that bin.
Yeah, but does that mean that record EV1 is charged 117 times in that 45-minute range?
That's the way I would read it.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And
you'll
we've
notice
got
that
a little bit of a spark line that shows you that it tends to be front loaded, but there are examples from across the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah. So, there are a lot more short charging intervals than there are longer charging intervals.
Yeah.
And
again, this is one of the powerful things at Tinderbox is that you can get these different lenses to your, and then you could also throw a timeline on this at some point and play with things like that. I mean, yeah,
exactly.
Really fun.
Yeah. So I merely wanted to show people I'm stepping into a world that I think is going to be challenging and interesting. But before I can get into that world and start doing all these interesting transformations, I needed to first get the data. And so I just thought I would share, it's not that bad. It's not particularly difficult to develop, stamps that do complex import explode operations and allow you to very precisely control exactly how you process that data into equivalent records with all the interesting items converted to attributes.
And especially with AI now, it's going to help you with the regex and debug it and all that. There's a lot, you don't have to be afraid of the code. I mean, it's doable.
Right. It's fairly obvious code. Um, and it's, most people learn how to do stamps, even if it's a simple thing. It is not much of a leap to be able to do stamps that perform these kinds of operations. And once you
Yeah.
do one of them, then it becomes fairly obvious how to do others. That was the
Awesome.
whole gist of what I wanted to show.
That was glorious. Jacob, are you ready for us?
I am. Yeah.
I need to
That
stop
was really
sharing.
great, Chuck. So and I'll tell you in a minute why it's great, but I have this problem where I capture notes or ideas or thoughts related to kind of recurring activities that I'm involved in. And this comes in the form of like gaming groups and even meetups like this, boards, nonprofit boards that I'm a part of, projects at work. And a lot of that data, a lot of those notes and stuff gets captured. I've been capturing it in a commercial wiki called Confluence. It's an Atlassian product. Um, and I got to thinking kind of over the holidays, gosh, it would just be great to be able to get all this sort of data into a similar format into Tinderbox. And the other sort of issue I have is that I often need to share this data with other people. And I thought to myself, well, gosh, Tinderbox has this really great export capability. Maybe this is the excuse I need to kind of co-opt an idea from Mark Anderson to like learn the export facilities and the templating system within Tinderbox, and so I can kind of share this stuff out with other people. So I got to work on this for one of my projects, and I'm told that has like recurring events. I'm told that this is a safe space. Like this is what Mark and Michael have told me. So I'm going to fly the nerd flag high this morning and share with you my gaming, my Dungeons and Dragons Tinderbox. And again, there's some cool things that I did, and I think community might appreciate it. There's nothing, no PII in it or anything like that. Nothing proprietary. So it's a good example. But I think
Nice.
that the one point I want to make is that I think that this sort of workflow, these sorts of sites could apply to many things that you all are involved in. Like, like I said, meetups
Mm,
is one example, but also,
mm,
courseware that you're developing, again,
mm.
boards and,
Yeah.
this sort of thing where you need to share stuff out. So
Yeah.
that's the
And,
context.
and and Jacob, can I pause you right there?
Sure. Yeah.
There's a huge learning lesson right there with what you just said. And Mark and I have talked about this for years in that so often when people present things like what you are, like, here's my totally geeky Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And so many times people will hear that and just shut their brain off. Like, oh, I
I
don't
know.
care about D&D, so I don't want to listen. And it's really, can you get past the topic and into the methods and into the workflow and to spend to spend your biases for the time being to see if there's a method you can learn. And Mark, you're shaking your head. You want to refute that in better or more
No,
refined
no, that's
language?
good.
Yeah.
I'm currently having a old school debate of dueling book chapters with Luc Baudouin, who has given a couple of meetups here on the subject
No,
of
he's the
learning.
hookmark guy, right?
Hookmark, right.
Yeah.
On the subject of how to learn from narrative, which he views as being exceptionally difficult, and I view as being absolutely easy, and people do it all the time. So but it's getting to be a terrific debate with, we each pull our McLuhans out from behind the poster.
Yeah, so that's just like a best practice learning. If you're going to suspend your biases when you see new methods like what you're about to show, it's really helpful.
Yeah,
Go for it.
yeah, thank you, Michael. That's an excellent point. I couldn't have said it better myself. All right, so let me share my screen. Can you see my Tinderbox?
Yes.
Looks like it's
Yes.
up. All right, fantastic. So again, I was capturing a lot of this data in Confluence. I actually had Claude write a little script that used Tinderbox's bridge, AppleScript bridge, to get the data in. I think after seeing what Chuck did, I probably would have maybe used a stamp to import the data because it was just in an XML format. Tinderbox has XML functions and all that, so I probably could use that instead. But anyway, say la vie. I got all the data into Tinderbox, and if you look, like I've got all my session notes. We have it organized by years. Here are the individual sessions. So if I look at one of the sessions here, like, it's just, it's a wall of text. If you've played Dungeons and Dragons, it's, it's all text based. So, this kind of summarizes what happened during that session. And yeah, one of the things that I wanted to play with was, okay, this is a lot of text. Like, could we summarize it? So what I did is I actually developed a prompt to summarize. So we got my LLM prompts here to summarize the session. I've got a little prompt that I created that summarizes the session. It does use Tinderbox's export facilities to marry the text with the prompt. In this case, it's kind of a template, and sends that off to Claude to summarize. And then I save that in a discrete,
And again,
attribute here.
you've got the facility that does that automatically, right? You've done that
That's
before,
right.
where it posts off
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Claude
yeah.
back.
So it's actually a pretty simple stamp. It's a stamp I have, but if I just show you the sorry, it's going to be in hints. If I just show you the code that does that, it's like super simple. So go to Claude. This is all it is. Like, it just runs a command. And then it does the text of my oh shoot, I gotta show you the stamp. Actually, it's in the stamp. This is the function that sends it off to Claude. Um, so if I do summarize session, which is what we were looking before, so all it does is it gets the prompt note, and it does this export string. So it says, hey, take this note that I'm on and combine it with this prompt that I just showed you, and then send it off to Claude, which is that function I just showed you, and then write the response back into the summary attribute. It's super simple. And the Claude command, just so you know, there's nothing like, under my sleeve here, is captured in this note. And this is this is all that it's doing. It's just calling this Claude, saying use the sonnet model and print your response to standard output, and we capture that, and that's what gets written to the summary.
Nice.
Does that make sense, Michael?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't know. For me, does anybody else? Questions, comments?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool. I'm just gonna clap some of this stuff up here a little bit. Yeah, so in the yoga, so I'm back here in the session. Now, if we preview this, like, it's really nice. Like, I got the summary up here. The markdown command I'm using allows for table of contents. So I can say, yeah, give me a table of contents for headings 2 through 6. So I got these nice, headings here, or these nice table of contents, so I can like go down to specific sessions and all that sort of stuff. You'll see that.
What flavor? By the way, what flavor of Markdown are you using? Is it Markdown or
This
Common
is
Mark?
Multi-Markdown, which you can install using
Multi-Markdown.
Homebrew.
Yeah.
And that's the one I'm using. There's a bunch of flavors, like a ton. And
Yeah.
that one is, just for what it's worth, it's one of the more, it's a C implementation, so it's very fast, low level. It's just a very fast parser for Markdown, and it provides support for things that I use, like tables and a few other things, mostly tables. But so yeah, I wanted something that had table support, and I'll show you kind of how that works here in a minute. But yeah, so this is the page, and what got me kind of excited about like learning Tinderbox's export stuff is that if you notice, there's like a nice little marriage here between the session years and then the individual sessions. So this is all built out just using export code, in Tinderbox. And let's see if I think I exported it. Yeah. So yeah, you can see that we've got, we can go to any of these sessions. We have a summary for it. And my goal is to share this out with kind of members that are part of our, as we call it, D&D campaign. And but again, to Michael's point earlier, like, you could use this for courseware. Like, this could be a syllabus with a table of contents, and you could have rich media in here, like images and videos and all that sort of stuff, kind of organized by maybe the course week, or that kind of thing. I also created a little, just to kind of get into the export stuff. I created a little site element. I have this site elements container, so I actually created an export template so I could add any number of just external links to the site. So here's those external links. You see them here in the outline. If I click on one of these, I actually save the glyph that's next to it, just as the SVG in the text. So the export template, if I go back to one of these here, it knows to use that glyph, that SVG, next to this site. So this is all kind of encapsulated in a nice little note. If you notice here too, we just very simple attributes. We're using the URL. and the name. So this is the name of it that shows up in the sidebar, and then the href or the URL that name ought to or link ought to go to. Um, yeah, there was one other thing I was going to show. Let's see here. Oh, this is kind of cool. So I have this other problem where so if I open up like if you know about D&D, like I got there's like monsters and spells and stuff. So if I oh that's not what I wanted. I'm gonna open up the mage monster here. And again, you'll see here's actually an example of a markdown table, nicely formatted. But you'll notice that there's like all these spells that this particular like little monster can do. And I've got a spells container and there's all those spells listed. But I thought to myself, like, gosh, it would be great if these were like linked. Like if I could like have this, linked in the note here and then linked in the export for it. And so what I did is I created a little auto linker. So I'm going to do auto link spells. And what it does is it uses Tinderbox's zip link syntax to modify the text and to link out any spells it finds
Sweet.
in the spells container here. So if you look, all my spells are linked. So that was really fun. I don't like the algorithm I use for this. It's a little inefficient, so I'm going to change that. But yeah, so if you have this need like I do to like auto link stuff that I've already got like in notes and crap, like this is a great way to do it. And again, we can do this using Tinderbox's very simple zip linking syntax. So if I go back to my export here, you'll notice now I've got links. So if I click on this cone of cold, there's the spell, um, and yeah, and of course it also works in here. So there we are.
Now, what's nice about this too is you can start managing your campaigns out of this too,
That's right.
as a
That
dungeon
that was
master,
kind
and
of
be taking notes in
that's
it
right.
real time and all of that. Yeah.
Well, it gets better. I haven't done this yet. I'm actually going to play with this probably when we got off the call here, but we can use Tinderbox maps. If you don't know about D&D, like there's maps everywhere. Like I could create a map with a map and then have little notes on the map of what happens in those rooms.
Yeah.
So that's kind of more idiosyncratic to like D&D, but I imagine you could do that for other, kind of use cases as well. So when I'm running the campaign, Michael, like I can have the map out in as a Tinderbox map and just click around as the party kind of does their thing. So anyway, this it was just a lot of fun for me to learn the export system, and there's some other features I want to add like search. I actually am going to take a peek at the work that Michael Anderson's done with aTbref. I know that you've got a full text searcher in there, so I'm going to go peel that apart and build that into this, so I can very quickly like look for a spell or a monster, or, whatever, right from
Mr.
the search.
Mr. Anderson, on that note, can you put the link to download TBX back the actual TBX file so people can look at the TBX
Yeah, and I'll put a link.
aTbref TBX?
Yeah, and I was just about to go and check. I think the search page also references where the stuff. I mean, I didn't write all this. It came via Jack Beatty, who pointed me to the guy who actually wrote it. So the actual implementation, the thing that just does all the magic, I have very little understanding of, in truth, because it's all in minified JSON and or JavaScript that I didn't understand. But I'll put those links in the sidebar. Yeah, sure.
The other thing I'll note,
but Jacob, you bring up a really good point though. Like taking the raw code from Mark Anderson's aTbref file is a great learning environment.
Yeah, no, I mean that I've looked at that file, and I mean, Mark, it's just very impressive and inspiring, quite frankly, like what you've been able to do, building that out. So the other thing I just wanted to mention, I've got also config notes. This is something that that we've talked about in a variety of meetups, and yeah, so I showed you like my Claude command where I was actually saving the command in the text, but I've got other things like related to the export in here, um, like I wanted a way to like just hide the sidebar so that it doesn't show. So I have this actually enable a sidebar thing. I'm just using the my Boolean. So if I turn that off, the export templates are kind of smart enough to know, yeah, I don't show the sidebar. I just want to see the text. And I've got other things like the site logo. This is also stored in the text here, title and stuff, because again, I'm intending to use kind of what I've pioneered here for other projects. So I wanted to use kind of Tinderbox best practices, as we've been talking about it, to as best as I can kind of extract the common things and enable me to use this for other stuff. So yeah, thank you
by
to
the way,
all that. But thank you.
go back to your site logo just real quick,
Oh, sure.
so
Yeah,
people see that. So that's not an image; that's a vector,
that's right.
right?
Yeah, it's just an SVG.
And
Yeah.
Tinderbox can do SVG vectors as well, which I think is something that's nice for people to understand. Or maybe you can explain what that is for people that may not know. How is
Yeah.
that an image?
So this is just it's an SVG, which is you're absolutely right, Michael. It's a vector image, and you can create vectors just using text, like you see here. Like this is kind of looks like XML, but HTML. So if you're familiar with things like Font Awesome, go out and check it out. I think it's fontawesome.com, or do a Google search for Font Awesome. Like all of those like little icons you see in there, those you can get as SVGs, and this is a great way to like keep your Tinder boxes slim and no images in them. I don't have any images in this one, but to still kind of take advantage of iconography, if that's your thing. And I kind of use it sparingly, as you kind of saw on the sidebar. But yeah, that's exactly what this is, and it's just text. And this actually, and if we preview it, yeah, it creates that little D20 dice glyph. And another thing to note too, actually, the LLMs can create SVGs. You can ask it, "Hey, I need something that does this or looks like this," and it can do colors and all that stuff. Yeah, and spits it out, and you can use it in your export templates.
Okay, and then one other thing, can you show us before you go? Can you explain to people the brew install? So there's two. Mark Bernstein has put two Markdown engines in the system for us: Common Mark and Markdown.
Mm-hmm.
Can you pop up a browser and show us going to Homebrew, showing us Multi-Markdown?
Sure.
And just kind of explain that process. Like I know it, but can you explain that process to people? And then can you show how to do like a which multi-markdown so they can get the path and then understand how to populate their preview
absolutely.
command?
Yeah, this is super easy. Okay, so here is Homebrew. This is the formula actually. So it's brew install multi markdown. I can copy that. Let me open up the terminal here. I probably already have one open. So this is just the terminal app, nothing fancy. And if I do brew install multi markdown, I've already got it installed, so it's not gonna.
Yeah, but it's just gonna overwrite it.
Yeah,
or update
there might be a newer one. Yeah, let's see. I haven't ran Homebrew in a while, so oh, we got an error. I must have an older version or something. So anyway, I could reinstall it. I'm not going to do that right now. But if I go which MMD is actually the name of the command for this, it gives me the path. So this is the path here. Copy that. And then if I go into, so say I got this prototype here. Actually, I'm using Common Mark for some stuff in this Tinderbox because I don't need all the rich markdown stuff, and it's faster because it's built in. But if I wanted to change my preview command, my this is what gets used for markdown, I can just come in here to my markdown prototype and paste in that path that you all saw, and now I am using multi markdown in my.
And so that's essentially telling
exports.
Tinderbox, go to this application to render this file, this markdown text.
That's right.
And then can you go display it for us and want to see it? Like go look at some of your notes. It may or may not
so
work.
Actually, if you look, I think, let's just look here. I'm using some inheritance here. So spells are spells. That makes sense, right? So it's got the spell prototype.
Well, there's one thing in particular I wanted to show people, so you can just grab it.
This is using some inheritance. So I'm using this this Common Mark prototype. So here's Common Mark, which is the one that we edited. So there's my MMD here. And then if I come in here, I'm sorry, it was a spell. And then render it, like preview, like it's gonna, there it is.
Okay. Now, if you click on export so people see it, that HTML preview command in the export, that's where you're in that little active button on the right. That's kind of where the attribute.
Yeah, you see it up here.
HTML preview command is also rendering in the UI. So if you can always play with, so if you wanted to switch that right now and break the inheritance, you can show people like now how you can render that with Common Mark.
So I would just type in
Common Mark
because it's built in, and I get it re-rendering.
And now it's rendering with Common Mark.
You'll notice it's a little bit different. The line endings and stuff were a little. So let's just paste back in what I have there. And you'll notice, it's different. It handles, I don't know. Looks like character returns differently or something.
Right.
Yep. So that's that.
And it's just like any number of universal languages. You think there's one common language for things like Markdown, and there's just tons of dialects, and it's crazy.
Yeah, Multi-Markdown's a good one because, like I said, it's super fast. It's one of the faster ones, and it's got quite a few features. There's some things it doesn't have that others do, and vice versa, actually. But yeah, it's served me well. I implemented it when I kind of got bent Tinderbox to my will as it relates to Markdown. And yeah, it's worked great. So I haven't had any issues. Mark, yeah, I see
Nice.
you got your hand up.
Yeah, just to, well, it's a couple of things, and I see there's a question that actually got put in the side by Peter Silko too, related to SVG. If you copy map as image and paste that into something that basically understands SVG,
Mhm.
my recollection is you get basically vector artwork. So I think you can even do it. So the problem is that if you then look at that in anything can read SVG, it's not the way you would have constructed. So yes, it's vector artwork, which means you get a nice scalable image.
That's right.
It's probably not particularly readable because it just, that export was never intended for that. So
No.
that
No,
puts a bit
and in
more.
fact, if you wanted to see it, like here, let's just try this real quick. I'm sorry, and I'll shut up. But if so I got BBEdit here. If I just paste this in, oops, what's
Yeah.
it doing? Oh, I know what it's doing. Sorry, that's some background thing. Okay, and then I'm just going to save this. Save as. I'm just do logo dot svg. I'm just going to put that on my desktop for now. And then put that over here so you guys can see it. And then, sorry, let me get some stuff out of the way. And then if we see, so it's rendered here in the Finder, and then I can just open this with, I think Preview
The
actually
browser.
opens it. Yeah, you can open it in the browser. I thought Preview did SVGs. Maybe it doesn't.
I think it used to.
It used to. Let's
Oh,
just
sorry, I
see.
don't know. Sorry, I don't know if it opens raw SV files that identify as SVG. What I meant was if you do the
Yeah.
copy map as image and then paste what you have on the clipboard in the
Oh, I
file
see what
in
you're saying.
preview, you can you can do one of two things with it. You can either basically make some raster artwork with your map as a JPEG or whatever, or if you save it as a PDF, essentially, I think you get a PDF wrap around all the SVG that's inside, and then you could put that into Illustrator or something and think,
Yep.
Now, of course, someone who, not myself, who isn't savvy with AI, could probably say, yeah, fine, look, could you just kind of clear that up for me? And it might be able to. I don't know, never tried. The reason I stuck my hand up was just the thought that was prompted by your comment about, doing your dungeon map as a background in Tinderbox. And I just wondered if, my recollection is that it probably can't, but that may be just because I haven't looked at it for a long time. But Mark, can you put an SVG as a background map in a Tinderbox map? The reason I say that is if you want to put a quite complex map in there, it strikes me that having a small amount of SVG rather than a ton of raster artwork might be more helpful.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually thought about using a poster for it, to be honest, like a poster note.
yeah.
Yeah.
Poster is probably more straightforward than adding SVG, though SVG support in the map view for backgrounds would not be a terrible thing to try.
Thanks.
Yeah, for what it's worth, just the maps I use are normally like PNGs or JPEGs or something like that. They're not vector. Yeah, so I was thinking about just using like a poster note that just renders the image, and then you can layer stuff on top of it. Well, actually, it'd probably be a poster adornment now that I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it. That's what it'd be. Yeah, anyway, so I mean, hopefully y'all got something out of that. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to nerd out a little bit.
Nice. All right. We've got about 18 minutes or so left. So let me if anybody has any other questions about all that. If not, we can jump in and I'll give you the quick 18-minute demo of building presentations. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I was
No,
just going
I'm
to say the
just
other
saying.
thing. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
No, I was going to also just say the other short thing we can put in is I'm very happy to show, or I can do it later, but I'm not often here so much now. Is just how the search is put together in aTbref. But I think most of the
do it
people
real
here will
quick.
be able to take. Okay.
Yeah, do it real quick, just so you
but-
can point people in the right direction.
Okay, bear with me this moment. Just share screen. to open aTbref, put it on the right screen. There we go. Share. We want that one. Okay, move that out of the way. Hopefully you can see this guy here. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So what you're looking at here is my master copy of aTbref. Just cut that down. As will become apparent, I live in outline in this document, but I've been using it for so long that it's just quicker to get around. I'm not suggesting it's the way everyone would want to do it. So the search index is produced by this page. So this note exports a template that creates the search page, and I have a note to myself saying that that's there. So we'd need to go and look and see what template that uses. Where is my inspector? Okay, so if I go to here, so I've got, it's using Fuse JSON plain search page. So there are templates, Fuse JSON search page. So you'll be able to find that if you go in, and you'll see there are some notes in the page that I've already linked to on the in a sense on the public page. It also gets you more quickly to some of the sources that led me to do this. But essentially, what happens is you go and run a script. But I can't quite remember is how I make the there's the JSON index that it creates. I had to tinker several times. I can't remember whether I ended up using the plain text version or the HTML version. I think I ended up using, by the looks of it, plain text to make the index, because although the rendered stuff I got nicer output. You got one or two weird edge case artifacts that were beyond my technical capability to resolve. So the plain thing gets you enough. Bear in mind, in this implementation here, the only job of the search page, which is which is linked on all the pages there, is basically so that you can type something in it. And so if we talked about, say, borders, and it's pretty good. I haven't quite figured out, I know it sounds trivial, but I don't know where in the sort of minified JavaScript to put something that says, why not, put the cursor in the box, because what else are you going to do on the search page but go look for something? So if you use this page, you do actually manually have to place the cursor in that box before you start typing, or you get zipped. But otherwise, it's there. So essentially, this page talks to an index. So let's just go and find. So that's going out of there. This one is going that sitemap wrapper. So that one is templates. But as you can see, you can find all the bits, all the templates in the document are in here. A small amount of stuff that is not directly a template is in the boilerplate folder. These are all root level folders in the documents. The utils part there mainly just has some agents that I use, most of which are off just to make the document manageable, because plus the fact they don't need to be running all the time. But it's all these bits here are giving you, so there you go. I gave up on the HTML. So this is using plain text. And there is a folder here that pushes out the code that does the search. And that I did not write, in case anyone's wondering. And in fact, if you want to see what it looks like on the just connect. So on the website, you've basically got the script here, and the search lives in the root of the site, and it's pretty much as simple as that. So once you put the bits together, it is actually incredibly simple. But don't give me any kudos for that. I've very much borrowed from other people. After that, I'll stop and let somebody else step in.
All right. So as I said, I will fill the gap. You give me an hour and a half, I'll take an hour and a half. Give me 11 minutes, I'll take 11 minutes. So let me show you what I did this week. So here's the challenge. I was at and designated to speak at this AI Luxury Summit, which was the first ever conference summit on AI and luxury this last Thursday. And as noted, I was insanely sick on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, honestly, the whole week and even today. So I was sitting there in the hotel room, just shell-shocked, figuring out how the hell am I going to pull this off? Because I've been so busy, got to New York, and I was basically sitting down like this, getting to write my presentation, and how do I get started? So what I did is very quickly in terms of workflow is I took the agenda and I said, can I share with you some files to train you on train you and then get some help on a presentation I'm giving? And ChatGPT said, sure. So I took the agenda and I popped it in, and it had all this sycophancy about, this is so great and lovely and all that. And then I just proceeded to go through a process of, I'm looking at the 30-minute presentation. Can you give me some ideas on how to structure it? And then you can just see the ongoing conversation I had with it on making it happen. So what I ended up doing is, so I started with going with Tinderbox or between chat and PowerPoint, and started copying and pasting stuff, getting back and forth. And then I really quickly got to this point of like, what the hell am I doing? I'm not thinking very well, because the challenge I was having is I was grabbing the ideas and I had my own ideas, of course, but grabbing my ideas from that. And PowerPoint is just not the right place to think with this type of work. So I randomly grabbed one of my Tinderbox files that has the templates I work in, particularly my teaching with Tinderbox, teaching mobile marketing. And I created a summary AI talk, and I started building in the outline, and I started going back and forth with chat on how do we want to story arc this conversation. And Tuesday afternoon, it was this hodgepodge mess. I went and then watched the Stranger Things Broadway play, which was just freaking unbelievably good. And the stage production was fantastic and exciting. And then I came back from the play and it dawned on me, I'm in New York. Why don't I break the conversation up into 4 acts? Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, just like the play. And, so the first act would be about what's happening around AI. Second AI is about bringing in this idea of digital twins, et cetera. So I was going back and forth with that. Asking chat to help me think through what I want to talk about. And again, if I had spent any more time on this, I would have had each one of these bullet items be individual notes and have paragraphs behind each one of those notes, and had a lot more thinking going on, but I wasn't really in a point to be thinking. I was just in a get her done mode. And then I was going back and forth with it, refining the talk track and the speaker notes that I wanted to do. So my template I built out here is I essentially just said, here are the slides that I want to generate. Here are the speaking notes that I generally want to have, with that talk. And in previous conversation or previous videos I've done before, I've demonstrated to you all where I've actually had, where's my slides template? I think it will work on this one because I've got it built in. So I've had it before where I've actually built out, actually, let me find my slides template. I'll get it done in the 7 minutes. Why why is it not showing the, oh, I'll just do this. Whoops, I just closed the Tinderbox file here. Here, let's do this one. There we go. I go here, and I just got to find my slides template. Does anyone see it? Well, I might not have slides in this one. I can't remember. So not important for this exercise, but I actually have another template I've developed at one point where I can actually present out of Tinderbox, but obviously I wasn't trying to do that. And so then what I was doing with Tinderbox is between Tinderbox and ChatGPT, as I was refining the talk, I would go ahead here and I would tell Tinderbox to use this template. So I would get the kind of, here's the long conversation between the bullets and the speaker notes and what we were having. And so I would just copy this. I'd pop it over to chat and I'd say, great. I think we're getting close. What do you think of this? Have I missed anything? Go like that, paste it in, and then chat would analyze my presentation and then come back and tell me, you're very strong, this is great, and give me all this crap that I just would ignore. And then I would go through and kind of give me suggestions on things I've nailed or things I've missed. And that was kind of a back and forth we went through the process. So now I've got, oh yeah, here's an example. So I've got the presentation I want to present. Here's, I wonder why it's doing that. You were seeing the little blue flickering just a second ago. So it's some of my template, my speaker note template is in there somewhere. But you'll see how, I think it's because the CSS file has been moved. But you'll see how I actually have a speaker, a file that lets me present out of Tinderbox too, but that could be a whole other presentation. And that wasn't what I was trying to accomplish here. So now I've got this back and forth between chat and me and building the presentation I want to do. So then what I did is I quickly went in down here and I said, all right, now what I need to do is I need to generate a markdown structure. So I've got T-slide as my container presentation. Oops, here. What's going on here? Why are those blank? Let me do this. T-slide. That's weird. Let me close this file. Something's weird. Open.
Just check that the weirdness isn't that all your text got turned white and you can't see it against the background.
It could be, but let me just close and do this.
There it is.
It's back.
I wouldn't know why that's happened.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know why. Let's forget it. We only have a couple minutes left. So then what I did is I'm like, okay, I need to get this out generated into Markdown because the quickest way I can get from Tinderbox files into a PowerPoint file is Pandoc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, take all my heading names, give them a heading 1, process the children with the children file, create a heading 1 file, grab it, and any children of the children, I want you to mark it down as speaker notes. And the markdown Pandoc conversion methodology is, grab these little colons, call them notes, stick in the text, and you get your speaker notes. So by doing that, what I was then able to do now is I can go like this, and I say, hit Command 1, and I change this to that template I quickly built. And so now all of the output is now in Markdown. And in Preview, it looks like crap because Preview is not a Markdown rendering browser. I would use like Marked 2 or something like that if I wanted to do that for real. But here is the Markdown that has been generated by Tinderbox. So now all I need to do is hit copy paste. And I've got other files that have edited, that have automated this whole process with stamps and all of that, not having to open up other applications. But given that I didn't have any time, I just went and did it this way. So then I go new, paste in that markdown. So I've now got the markdown into a text file. I hit save as, and I dump that into my kind of placeholder TBX export file where I do that. And we'll call this slides r2.md. So now I've got my slides r2.md file. If I pull this over here, so you all see that. Here is the slides2.md file here. Now I open up terminal, pull terminal over, and I go cd tbx export. So now I'm in my export directory, and now all I need to do is go Pandoc slides r2.markdown. I'll put everything to slides r2.pptx. And now I've got a, that's fine. Now I've got a pptx file. No, let me do that again. What was there? Defaulting to HTML.
You've got 3 Ps.
Yeah, too many.
Oh, got it. So, yeah. Slides r2. Oh, hang on. Pandoc.
If you arrow up, Michael, you can get the previous command.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that.
And then yeah, there you go. You just choose that. Yep.
PPTX, right?
Yep.
All right. So now I've got my PowerPoint file. Okay. So now I've got my PowerPoint file. And then all I needed to do was go through and prettify it. Right. So I just applied a template and then went through and gave and I don't know what's wrong with PowerPoint right now. Let's close it. Save. Don't save. And I'll just open up the final file I did. All right. And then here is the presentation I gave. So it started with Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. And all of the slides were there. And it was just a matter of taking an hour, throwing a template on it and making it pretty. And so that whole process took a handful of hours, which could have taken me weeks. And I was able to get it done while being sick as a dog. And the concluding thing is I was offering people this opportunity to the whole overall talk was add a digital twin on top of luxury products to create this personalized, naturalized experience and use personal data stores with it so that people can have control and self-sovereign agency over their data. And then if you scan that QR code, you can actually have a conversation with my digital twin. And then I actually introduce people how they can cheaply go off and get their own digital twin. And that was the talk. But there is a great example of how even when you can barely think, to go from some ideas that you have using chat, using Tinderbox, using some of these command line tools, and you get yourself a presentation. And there you go. I was a little 2 minutes over, but there you go. Thoughts, ideas, comments, reactions. We can go into more detail when we have more time if you like, but that's the general process.
It's brilliant. I like the fact that you can put your speaker notes in there. That's great. I'm going to steal that.
Yeah. Well, and the nice thing
awesome.
about it too is the place to do that kind of thinking is in Tinderbox. And that kind of thinking in PowerPoint is a freaking nightmare.
Oh, no, don't do it there. Yeah.
Right. So you do all that thinking in PowerPoint in Tinderbox. And then when you're ready to go prettify it, you do that process. And then that way you're not wasting all of this time messing with fonts and places of bullets and days of your life in that design phase when really the most important thing is the thinking. And that's the one thing I did remind myself at the end of the day too, is even if I just showed up with a white deck, the audience would prefer my thoughts more than the fact that it was pretty. And then once I actually had that extra hour before I actually had to get up to present to make it a little prettier. And ideally, if I had a designer, I would have sent it off to a designer and had them professionalize it. But, it got the job done. Awesome. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next weekend. Bye-bye.